I was going to write this as a note, but I think it would have more impact if I read it. It's been a long time since I've written one. Termination choices are never easy. In my entire life, I have only met one person, one woman, and I'm not going to mention who she is, that felt it was easy. They should never be treated that way. It is an incredibly personal, very painful decision that someone has to make, and it is just as painful and it is just as difficult as say you're at the end of life and you have to choose whether you're going to pull that plug or not on your loved one. I personally could never get an abortion. I'd never want one. With my last child, Caitlin, I carried her, not to term, but I carried her, even though 3 separate doctors told me to terminate, or I'd die. Both of us would. If another woman in that situation, in my situation, chose to terminate, I know, especially since Kat was so wanted and we tried so hard for her, I know it would break her heart, because just the thought of it sickened me, like to my soul, it sickened me. The day I came home from the doctor and Kenny and I had a conversation about it, he was terrified. And he begged me to terminate, because he said that we could always try again. And we had, over the course of the next week, we had many tear and fear-filled conversations. You know, I had to have that conversation with him because he was the father of he's my husband. He's the father of my born child. This was his child too. And he didn't want to lose me. In the end, he respected my choice. He didn't like it. He was scared the entire time. But he respected my choice. Why? Because it was my body. And the life that I was carrying was my responsibility. I will tell you this, though. It was really close for me and Kat. They put me in the hospital. I started getting really sick and they put me in the hospital at 28 weeks. And I declined very rapidly. At 31 and a half, 32 weeks, I started spilling protein. My blood pressure went through the roof. I couldn't hardly see. And they told me that if I wanted my husband there for the birth, I had to call him right now because they were inducing me whether he was there or not. It was a very difficult birth. It was hard on both of us. And after she was born, it took her a little while to cry. At one point, she had stopped breathing for long enough that she had turned completely gray. Her little heart he cut off. At one point, she had stopped breathing to the point where she was gray and her little heart was stopping. And it was incredibly quick thinking of the neonatal doctor that brought her back. I was in recovery for over 36 hours and in the hospital for 2 weeks. Kat was in neonatal for over 4 weeks, and she would continuously stop breathing. Hold on. Okay. A quarter of a century later, 25 years later, I can still see her in that incubator. I can still hear how weak her cries were. It sounded like she was a little sick kitten. I remember the self-recrimination sitting next to her incubator, wondering even then if I had been selfish by bringing her to term because of what she was going through. It is never a simple decision. It was the skill of the OBGYN surgeons and absolute sheer luck that we survived. I hemorrhaged, I bled out, my heart started struggling, I was on all different kinds of medication. They weren't joking when they said that it was going to be bad. The ravages of that pregnancy and the difficulty of that birth have left permanent emotional marks as well as health complications to this day. Kat is struggling to this day with health complications with her chest, her bones, her joints, her breathing, her neurological activity, all of these things to this day. When her baby teeth came in, it looked like somebody had scooped out the center of them with an ice cream scoop. This isn't meant to say that I wish that I had terminated, which I hadn't. I wouldn't. I love her so much. My life would be empty without her in it. What this is to say is that when I made that choice, it was my right to make that choice. It was my choice, mine, not my husband's, not my doctor's, my choice. It would scar me for life and destroy a part of who I am to end a life that I'm bringing into being. It is a personal, private, and most times heart-rending choice to make, no matter what the situation. So what if we flip that? What if they couldn't just choose to make you carry to term? What if they could choose who could carry to term? Because these are reproductive rights. This isn't just abortion rights. This is reproductive rights. What if at that time they had decided that it was medically necessary to terminate my pregnancy? What if they forced me to get an abortion? It's just a coin flip away. To take away your reproductive rights in these areas now. What is to say that they won't start choosing who is suitable to have a child? What's to say that eventually a situation like mine, the choice would be made for me because I'm not competent enough to make choices about my own body as a woman? I am so sick to death of these politicians saying it's all about the kids, when there's little to no resources for those children who are brought into this world. When you're born, life is precious until you're born. Then when you're born, you're on your own. It's not about the kids. And I'm sick to death of them making it sound so cut and dried when faced with this kind of decision. I am sick to my heart when I look at my girls, all of my girls, both born to me and not, and worry what will happen to them if they are ever faced with this kind of decision in this climate today. Will it even be their decision to make? This isn't about preserving life. Make absolutely no mistake. This is about control.